JD, I think I might be German. I'm not even gonna tell you how I've changed in Germany. I'm just gonna show you. Dear awesome boss man, I have made myself some thoughts. Elisabeth, hello. You saw the latest reports. Oh? Or what? One thing I can tell you about living in Germany is you get a kind of a telling off reflex. Germans are incredible at telling people off. They just kind of like give you very snark, I almost want to say secondhand comments. So a guy will go by on a bicycle and be like, "Das ist ein Fahrrad, weg." Or not even that, this is like, "Kannst du sehen? Bist du blind?" Or something to that effect. German can be beautifully indirect, actually. So you'll see someone in a restaurant and they'll be like, "Wow, the steak is really well cooked." That's not a compliment to the steak, by the way. It just means that it's tough. Don't think Germans are direct. It's the biggest lie. But this is interesting because, you know, it doesn't mean that you fail as a South African or become a German. You just kind of like, you become excellent at being whatever this is. So let's look at the science behind all of this. Scientific glasses. Sciencey. She was revealed. Beautiful, even though she was... Anyway, sorry. I'm back. The science says that if you go down a research rabbit hole, you will find things that that work with your theory. And I did. So my science rabbit hole revealed a peer-reviewed study from, let me just check, Anki and colleagues, Anki et al, the most famous scientist of all time. And it basically said that after 10 years or so longer, you're not just in novelty mode anymore. So the novelty wears off and you're beyond the point of being like an integrated expat. You get a TCA, that is a third culture adult. So you're a third culture adult. You're not just used to it, you physically and psychologically like mutate to become a new person. So it's like you lose the operating system of South Africa 2.0 and integrate the system of Germany 1.0 and become like a whole new mecha, stronger, more psychologically broken guitar solo. It's literally like a new hat, a new identity that you put on this third culture adult. And I feel it's very true for people who have been to multiple countries, because every country you visit is amazing, and a little bit of its magic rubs off on you. I showed you the German stuff. I still sometimes, and it's been years since I've lived in Korea, I still mix my R's and L's. I still say like, because I had a lot of American friends. Like every culture just rubs off just a little bit. And so you develop this whole new identity, and it's very interesting, but it also leads to the ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss it describes the grief without closure, or frozen home. In the Ambiguous Loss, Learning to Live with Unresolved Grief from Harvard University Press, they said that the theory of ambiguous loss is widely cited in expat psychology. It describes the grief of a physical absence with a psychological presence, aka you leave your friends and family and things that you knew behind. The grief can stay with you. For some people, it can be unresolved for decades. And I can imagine that's true for people who didn't want to leave. So you have some identity dissonance, and a lot of people solve this by hanging out with people from their country in the new country. And it's pretty interesting to see how people deal with this identity dissonance. Then there is cultural adjustment cycles. That's basically something from the Personality and Social Psychology Review, that it basically explained the more integrated an expat becomes in their home country, so in my case in Germany, the more distress you feel upon looking back at your home culture, because your self-concept is fundamentally altered. They called it a subtractive versus additive identity. The third point, sociologists call where we live liminality. It comes from the Latin for threshold, right? So it means we're permanently standing in a doorway. We aren't in the room with our German neighbors, we just don't get their jokes. But we aren't in our room with like our cousins in Pretoria because we don't know the new slang. Like we don't evolve with our counterparts in our native country. And we're kind of just like living in a hallway and it can get lonely. But hey, at least the hallway has electricity. But wait, I'm still a South African and I can prove it. First of all, I realized how Afrikaans I am. We are brutally honest, very straightforward. I think that's something I genuinely actually miss about living in Russia, is you could just be like, Vlad, your idea is stupid, and Vlad would be like, screw you, Liz. And it's never a thing they take, to heart. They don't take it too seriously. And that's something I miss here sometimes, this like, brutally honest. My dad even sometimes says, my honesty can cut bone. So that's nice, thanks Dad. The second thing is I still say ach, which is nice because here in Germany people just assume I say ach because of German. I don't. Ach is Afrikaans. We also say no for agreeing as an Afrikaans person. They'll be like, do you like the weather today? And you'll be like, no, it's great. Always no. Do you like, what is her name? Tyla. And be like, no, she's a good artist. Never yes, always no. And then you agree. We're very strange. And also very Afrikaans. And I did not know this until like I moved abroad and saw lots of videos of people being like, haha, Afrikaans people don't feel cold. I thought it was a me thing, that I just don't feel cold because I'm strange. But apparently it's an Afrikaans thing, like, you put your feet under in the blanket and then you know that it's actually cold. Or you're not barefoot outside, or, politicians have their hands in their own pockets. That's how cold it is. But I also have some things that prove that I'm South African that I really love about us, and I only realized once I went abroad. We really have this a boer maak 'n plan mentality. That basically means something goes wrong and we're like, another one. And then we just make a plan. We figure it out. We find a way. And I love that about us. I also love our sense of humor. We have very dark humor. Like, the worse it gets, the funnier it is. I'll never forget once in a German office where I worked in an agency, we lost our biggest client. May they rest in peace. And then I cracked joke after joke and I was laughing. And eventually my wonderful boss at the time was like, oh, you think this is funny? And I was like, it is because it is funny. He's like, you're South African. I was like, oh, okay. We vibe. I think one of the things that South Africans do very well is when someone's in a good mood and they're kind of vibing, you can't help yourself. You vibe with them. If someone's dancing, you immediately, even if you just like bounce a little bit, you're in that immediately. I went to a South African store a while ago and I was just very, very happy that it was Friday. So I was like, happy Friday, weekend. This woman did not hesitate. She was like, weekend. And I literally stopped doing what I was doing. Just absolutely shocked that someone vibed with me like that. We vibe. This is a very South African thing, I think. And then if something like Tyla comes on and I don't want to admit it, but like if Zola comes on or something that I know, even if that comes on, I get a little excited. Sometimes I even get a little bit emotional. One of my friends, actually, she lives in London and she does not like Steve Hofmeyr. For those of you who don't know Steve Hofmeyr, don't even look him up. But she said someone drove by and was listening to it and she just like started to tear up from the homesickness. But the question still remains, am I South African? Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the groen mamba, the green mamba. And yeah, I still have it. As long as it's allowed, I'll still keep it. And I'll fuck, it's expired. It's expired, guys. Now, if you just laughed at that, then I want you to know that even if you don't have a groen mamba, you're a little bit South African.